I paid my dues, time after time. I've done my sentence, but committed no crime. And bad mistakes. I made a few. I've never lost something else, but I broke through. We are the champions, my friends. And we'll keep on fighting till the end. We are the champions. We are the champions. No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world. Anyway, is that working? Yep, that's working. All right, let's see if more people will bother to watch this. Something about cinnamon. A very calming remedy. A remedy for all this kind of occasion. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the live stream where we talk about something that I probably should have done a while back. But anyway, fear us and hear us roar. Yes. We are YouTubers. Hear us roar. Thought I'd give you my lion roar. I roar like Andy Murray, another local Scotsman. Yes! Victory roar, my friends. This really is something I really should have covered in the past, but with stuff that's been going on and some other recent news I've been keeping up with, I reckoned albeit a bit late, I think that was a pretty good time to talk about it. Because, this is quite a relevant topic, especially in regards to news, because I have people come up to me and say, a few people, maybe one person or maybe a few others, my memory's maybe not the best. But anyway, maybe one or two people come up to you and say, hey, Calum, why don't you just keep up with the news and stuff like that? Firstly, I've got more important stuff to deal with. And secondly, not necessarily all news, but we live in a time when a lot of news, not all news, but a lot of news is very opinionated and leans itself a lot into sensationalism rather than just analyzing the actual commonsensical facts. And this kind of approach of journalism and activism has leaked itself into the entertainment. And so people online have been rightly critiquing that, and a lot of people have gravitated to said online critics. And so since the online critics get more attention in that regard, because the actual fans of certain entertainment content are actually listening to the online critics rather than what mainstream media journalists have to say, mainstream media journalists and corporatizations, they fear us now. They're afraid of us. They are terrified of us, and we have an impact. So what is the actual thing in question? I will bring it up. So apparently the story is, I don't know if more people are going to join us. Might as well share things out. I mean, people might, oh wait, I think more people are coming back. I think actually I have another place I could share this with. Hold on, just be right back. Let's see. I sound like a machine gun. Anyway, yeah, I'll do. Anyway, so basically the main story and topic for this live stream is basically talking about something that Dan Vavra, a writer and director of the RPG Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, he appeared on a Czech podcast, and he had something to say. And it was quite interesting for him, of all people, to say this. I mean, it's one thing to hear others claim this, but to have someone who actually works in the mainstream entertainment industry actually admit something of this kind of breakthrough, it's worth getting attention to and it's worth talking about. So let's see what Dan Vavra had to say. He said on the podcast, well, he was speaking in the Czech language, but someone managed to fully translate the quote from Czech to English. And what he said goes as follows, and I quote, "Listen, I've even heard that their big developers, companies he's referring to, I've even heard that the big developers and companies are really scared of quote unquote hate tubers, let's say." So this isn't Dan calling them hate tubers. He's referring to other people who call certain people hate tubers. He then says, let's say, the kind of guys like the Critical Drinker, Asmongold, and others who started criticizing big companies and didn't hold back on their opinions. That's me putting words in their mouth, admittedly. But he did say the kind of guys like the Critical Drinker and Asmongold and others who started criticizing big companies. Okay, I need to get the wording more specific. He specifically said the kind of guys like the Critical Drinker, Asmongold, and others who started criticizing big companies. I thought it was so niche. Okay, Asmongold got like a few million followers. His videos have some impact, but it's definitely not what everybody is watching. And now I found out from some people that companies are really terrified of them, and it's really having an impact. Ooh, do tell. Pardon me. Just have a dinner. He then goes on to say that when somebody starts to critique the game and the corporate world, that it does have an impact. And it's unsustainable how these corporations do it, considering that they've now made games that nobody wanted. And they even said it when those gamers started complaining that they didn't like it and they didn't want that kind of game. The developers started telling them that they were stupid, that it wasn't a game for them, which is completely bizarre that they're insulting their own customers. So there you have it. Someone who actually works in the entertainment industry is actually publicly admitting what a lot of people have already known all along, but this time bringing in a new revelation. Like, not only is he affirming what people have already known for a long time in the fact that the woke crowd have infiltrated the entertainment industry and their double standards and their hypocrisies have alienated a lot of the fans away from certain franchises and certain pieces of entertainment. For the same reason a vegan should not be going to cook at a steakhouse. Not only that, but Dan reveals something quite new to us, that the corporations are actually listening to us. They're actually listening to us. And according to Dan, an actual entertainment industry worker, it does have an impact. Why? Because the more people speak out, the more they will appeal to their niche audiences who are very passionate about certain franchises and certain entertainment things. So if they say that something the corporations make is bad, the fans are going to trust the authenticity of the person who's actually interacting with the entertainment. They're not going to trust the biased journalists who are going to ignore any and all trace of criticism for the sake of shilling for a certain game. No, if it's bad, someone out there is going to tell the truth. And the moment that leaks out, people are going to latch on and acknowledge the faults. I mean, obviously, people are free to play games and to review like movies and TV shows and, like what they like. People are free to do that. There's no stopping them from doing that. But obviously, on the whole, there's this wide consensus that a vast majority of fans will prefer certain franchises to be in this kind of direction because that's part of its charm. Or some other franchises will prefer to lean towards this kind of direction because that's the way it's worked. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And here these corporations come along and say, hey, let's infuse activism and other points that completely contradict the franchises into there for the sake of shill corporate pandering that's going to appeal to all the general audiences, even though the general audiences that they're trying to aim for won't actually buy into what they're what's being given to them. Meanwhile, their actual passionate audience who've been there the whole time are then alienated from what they've been trying to do. And so the more that these kind of critics online who are actually authentic speak out, corporations are actually scared of us. So, in the words of Walter White, after defeating Gus in Breaking Bad, I've won. Yeah, we won. And now we're entering a golden age where people are probably going to be relying on us more than ever. Although there are still plenty of journalists out there who are willing to talk about the unfiltered truth no matter what. But, you know, it's rather telling that a lot of people these days are more willing to listen to online critics who actually entertain their audiences and are willing to review things as they are, rather than these highly opinionated activists who masquerade as journalists, if you get what I mean. It's about time something like this happened. Pardon me. Right, what else is there to say? I suppose I should go through what I've been looking into bit by bit. It doesn't seem like anyone else is watching at the moment, but hey, I might as well just talk about things out. So, I mean, as you know, like, for the longest time, people relied on newspapers, magazines, books, television, radios, and stuff like that for their form of legacy media. But things got really out of hand in recent years, especially since 2016 or so, when people started to use this activism as this surface level excuse to avoid legit criticism to actually improve art on an objective basis. And so in response, these online critics have come along to encourage critical thinking and authenticity over corporate spin and direct engagement and merit over identity politics. So, and over the years, we have been recognizing that a lot of entertainment is just not what it used to be. And there is just so much silly media out there. We've had to put up with so much woke nonsense over the years that have bombarded a lot of our entertainment. I mean, it must have been there lurking in the shadows for a while, but it whatever happened, it showed its ugly face in 2016 when that really bad Ghostbusters movie came out, and myself and others was like, oh, well, it's clearly just a terrible movie. I mean, the humor is very lackluster, and it's just, I don't know who was involved with writing that movie, but whoever it was, it clearly doesn't have the talent of the original Ghostbusters team. Then again, the Ghostbusters film is like lightning in a bottle, but the filmmakers tried to say, oh, these people don't like the 2016 Ghostbusters movie because they're sexist. Whoa, that is a big leap in logic, mate. We're not being sexist. We do like comedies which have women in it. We do like action heroines. We like that kind of thing. It's just that the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, it's just not that great. That makes you a sexist. What? Obviously, a lot more people were able to see beyond that kind of surface level appeal. But I think that's where it started, and the woke crowd started to take a grim hold of the entertainment industry from there on. And I've looked into the tenets of this kind of woke activism, and there are people online who say, "Oh, wokeism is just Marxism, man. It's just Marxism." But that's kind of just like throwing a just throwing these labels out, because there actually is a difference between wokeism and Marxism. There are core differences. Marxism is first and foremost an economist movement, whereas wokeism is more centered around stuff like social justice. However, Marxism did later on go on to inspire communism, and communism has a lot in common with wokeism. And communism is a deeply, deeply dangerous worldview. Man, my favorite dark thing, hating the woke left. You're gonna get me fired up. Okay, we gotta humble ourselves into realizing we gotta love our neighbors. We gotta love the people who wronged us. But obviously, we have to hate the wrong. Otherwise, we won't have a chance of potentially changing their minds, you see. So take it easy. Take it easy. You obviously hate the woke left ideology, but don't hate the people. We want to save them, because love the sinner, hate the sin. Amen to that. Amen to that. Because there's something quite ironic about these woke leftists, is that they claim to be all loving, but if there's any ounce of disagreement, then suddenly everyone loses their minds and they start screeching all over Twitter. And this gradually got worse and worse, to the point where it skyrocketed in the pandemic years when people had nothing else to do. And so throughout the years, that woke movement, which has a lot in common with communism, and communism is probably the most dangerous worldview to ever exist, because communism objectively killed more people in the 20th century than any other religion combined in the previous 19 centuries. Yikes. So wokeism has this very extreme perspective on social justice. Like, obviously, we want to empower women. Obviously, we want to empower minorities. I mean, that in itself isn't a bad thing. But the thing about the woke crowd is that they distort those virtues with immense double standards. And it's given them excuses to make these characters that are not really well written. And if anyone criticizes them, you must be a racist, you must be a sexist. No, it's just a poorly written character, and there's room for improvement here. Just calm down. No! Silence is violence! We must not be calm! We must be an upcoming storm! There is a tempest in me! I gotta laugh about it, because the woke crowd is just taking themselves way too seriously. Through their activism outside the entertainment and through the entertainment itself, there was gradually, myself and others started to see a lot of pattern recognition in regards to the double standards of the extreme woke crowd that have infiltrated the entertainment industry. So, like, for example, they preach inclusion while excluding fans. They claim to champion diversity and inclusion, yet they often dismiss, mock, or attack longtime fans who criticize changes to beloved franchises. I'm a strong, independent woman. He doesn't need no man. We'll get to that. Yeah. They demand representation while erasing established characters. And like in Doctor Who, they retcon the characters' origins to undermine previous male iterations. Or they'll often race swap certain characters instead of going out of their way to adapt stories of African mythologies, which would have been really fascinating. I mean, obviously, like, race swapping could have worked well enough if handled correctly, but when you watch stuff like the live action Little Mermaid, for example, by that point in history, people were had already caught on to this pattern of some characters being subverted for the sake of superficially empowering certain characters who were very poorly written. And when they see that pattern over and over and over again, by the time the Little Mermaid live action remake came out, people immediately lashed back because people immediately perceived that Halle Bailey was cast just because she ticked the box. I mean, she is a talented singer, and given the right direction, she would have done the role really well. It's just that it's rather unfortunate that pattern recognition happens, you know. So they empowered Ariel in a way that felt very superficial. Like, for example, the finale of that movie involves Ariel having to steer that wrecked ship instead of Eric, even though that doesn't make any sense for the following reasons. One, she's a mermaid. What experience does she have of like steering an actual ship like that, especially when she doesn't have her human legs at that point? Two, the whole point of that scene, the original, was that Eric went out of his way to save Ariel, and Triton was there to see it. So that now gives him an understandable reason to seek peace between humans and mermaids. But now you don't have that. So, like, what on earth? Like, it's a kind of thing where people are going to accuse me of being racist for, criticizing the film. But if you actually think about it logically, this film could have been done well. You could have had a race-swapped Ariel done well, but due to the pre-established pattern recognition of superficially elevating certain minority characters who are poorly written, people immediately lashed back at this certain iteration of Little Mermaid because people were seeing the same patterns again, and people were getting fed up with that. So they try to promote strong women while making them flawless and unrelatable. So classic heroines that people try to duplicate, like Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor, Wonder Woman, Eowyn, those characters were strong, but they were also human and at times flawed. The woke approach often removes struggle or depth. I mean, I suppose in some stories, like especially in like detective stories, you could have a character who's perfect in some ways, and that the only flaws that they have is just simply the lack of complete information and so they have to solve the mystery in order to gather information. I guess Miss Marple's a good indication of that in this case. At the very least, a character has to struggle, like legitimately struggle. Like, even if your character is like quote unquote perfect and meant to represent like a Christ kind of figure, your character at least does have to struggle in order to make the story compelling. But the problem is these woke icons, as it were, they're not given room to struggle, and so their journeys are unrelatable. So because they have no struggle, they are unrelatable, and because they are unrelatable, they become boring. So Rey from Star Wars is instantly powerful without any prior training, whilst Luke and Anakin had to struggle and grow. That's why so many people didn't really like Rey. I mean, although I will say, in The Force Awakens, I noticed that, contrary to widespread rumors, at least in the first film, Rey was not a complete Mary Sue. And I often brought up the fact that in the first film, when Rey is given the call to destiny, as it were, she initially runs away because she's afraid and she wants to see her parents. And I thought to myself, that's actually quite an interesting character flaw. She wants company, she wants love. And that's further played into in the Last Jedi. And there was this very interesting plot twist, which I found really interesting, where it's revealed that Rey actually came from nowhere. And the message of the movie is you don't have to come from a lineage of someone instantly recognizable nor do special things. And I thought, yeah, that's really inspiring. But then they completely retconned that by the time Rise of Skywalker came along, saying, oh, by the way, you're a Palpatine. And a friend pointed out to me that they were ripping off Dune before the Dune movies even came out with the whole grandfather reveal. Good grief. I understand you're telling the truth. Do you ever get like angry negative comments? Not a lot compared to others. I certainly have in the past, but not these days. I've got an audience of people who agree with me, including yourself. Another example of a strong woman who's unrelatable would be She-Hulk. She-Hulk mocks the She-Hulk mocks She-Hulk mocks She-Hulk mocks the male superheroes while portraying its protagonists as flawless and always right despite making selfish decisions. That's another common pattern with these kind of characters. These characters have no accountability for their bad actions. Like you'll see stuff like Abby, Ellie, or like Tila from Masters of the Universe Revelations, who make very poor choices and immoral actions and very mean things they say to people, and there's no moral accountability for that, for what they're doing. What could I think of for an example? I suppose like the way Wakanda is depicted in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, especially in contrast to Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like the senator who couldn't provide enough resources for people who reappeared overnight. You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up. But the Queen of Wakanda is willing to hide and preserve resources that Wakanda can never run short of and never share that with the world. Double standards. So there is a female character who does something fairly immoral, and yet there's no accountability for her. In direct contrast, you have superb stories like A Plague Tale Requiem, where our main heroine has a moment of negative anger, and that negative trait actually has a consequence in that story. But with a lot of these woke, strong female characters, there's no consequences to their actions, and as well as them being unrelatable. So a lot of people critique them for that. These things are awful. Like it's like I forgot, and now I remember how awful they are again. Yeah, because you suppressed it out of your mind. Another reason why people gotten sick and tired of the woke crowd, because the woke crowd keep telling audiences, it's not for you. And then, after they say, if you don't like it, don't buy it, the fans just react like Saitama and go, okay, we're not going to buy your stuff. And then they complain about the low sales. Gee, I wonder how that happened. like the new iteration of Doctor Who got a very poor reception, and Ncuti Gatwa told people to go out and touch grass. Okay, people touch grass, and the show got low ratings. But hey, at least people got outside. So other examples would be like the Marvels, which bombed at the box office after Brie Larson and Disney dismissed criticism, saying they didn't care about white male opinions. Even though a lot of white males like take up a lot of America, regardless of whose side they are on politically. So, not to mention, what does that say about the white males who worked on the movie? What does that say about Bob Iger? Didn't Bob Iger approve this? If you're that concerned about white male opinions, what about Bob Iger and other white males who like higher up? It's such a stupid double standard. Velma on HBO mocked the fans of the classic Scooby-Doo and then flopped hard due to bad writing. Again, we see the pattern happen again and again and again and again and again. Happened in the comics industry, happened in the gaming industry, happened in the movie industry, happened in television shows again and again and again. The woke crowd keep pushing, right? They call us racist, then they are racist. So, yeah. For people who claim to be not racist, be so inclusive, so empowering, they won't shut up about the white supremacy and stuff like that. And they want to exclude white men from anything and everything, which ironically makes them racist. No, we can't be racist. It's only because this bad stuff happened in the past. Okay, look, I'm just going to lay it out in the past. throughout history, everyone has been racist to everyone throughout history. And what the woke people refuse to admit, and this is something I've learned in history class, is that during the Atlantic slave trade, African chieftains and leaders gave away their own people to gain access to European goods as part of the Atlantic slave trade. You don't hear them bring that up now, do you? And everyone's been a slave to everybody, like all the nationalities, regardless of race, as it were, has been a slave to somebody at some point in history. That's just the way these civilizations worked. I mean, it's not a very pretty fact, but it's true. So that's another thing. The woke crowd keep trying to suppress history for the sake of emotional validation. I think the biggest example of this would be the way the Netflix docudrama adaptation of Cleopatra.
I don't care what they tell you at school. Cleopatra was black.
Yes, because ignore all the dozens of busts and coins and other historically valid documents which indicate that Cleopatra was of Greek descent. No, 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 no. Your grandma, with presumably nothing to back up her statement, said she's black, so therefore she's black. Isn't that so empowering to the black cause? It's such a superficial attempt at trying to represent a sort of minority of people, and it's a misrepresentation of history. Even people in Egypt lashed back at this, and yet they call us racist. Like, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Is it any wonder why so many people gotten disillusioned with Hollywood as of lately? And so people spoke out, and obviously we've won at the end of the day. Like, how does someone even make that up? There is evidence that says otherwise. Exactly! These morons keep ignoring history and facts and common sense in order to validate their own worldview and stuff like that. They keep pushing political messaging over quality storytelling. Like, The Last of Us Part 2 killed off a beloved character in an out-of-character way to push a revenge narrative that many fans felt was contrived. And The Rings of Power spent more time on identity politics and Twitter arguments than actually writing a compelling Lord of the Rings story. Is it any wonder why there were so many contradictions and so many contrivances and so many plot holes and stuff like that? Good grief, what is season 3 gonna be like if they don't learn from their mistakes? They're not gonna learn from their mistakes. I just know they're not. The woke crowd, they claim that the phrase "get woke, go broke" is a myth, but time and time again, projects keep failing because of woke implications. Many woke projects have suffered huge financial losses, yet defenders insist that backlash has no impact. For example, the Saints Row game in 2022 flopped after the developers mocked fans for disliking the cringe new direction. The fifth Indiana Jones movie lost over $100 million despite pushing a feminist agenda and sidelining the very main character that the franchise is named after. And ironically enough, an indie movie called Sound of Freedom beat the indie movie in mainstream cinema. How is that even possible? Like, it's Indiana Jones. It's meant to be one of the most epic adventure series of all time. Like, even the fourth movie wasn't that bad. How can you go to that low a state? It's so stupid. They keep pushing diversity while hiring unqualified people based on identity. Ah, yes, this is another crucial part of why the woke agenda just doesn't work. They keep hiring anyone and everyone except the people of talent. Like, many people like myself and fans online say, look, we don't care if you're Japanese, if you're African, if you're Japanese, if you're French, if you're Swedish, or from Antarctica. We don't care. All we care about is your passion for this project and your talent to make it happen. That's all we care about. It's those kind of fans who actually adhere to what Martin Luther King Jr. said when he said, "We will judge them not by the color of their skin, but by the quality of their character." But ironically, the woke crowd do the exact opposite, where they reject quality of character and judge everyone based on their skin color. Look, I swear, the woke crowd keep worshiping the African American people. Like, I think that's why Black Panther is as overrated as it is. No, don't get me wrong. I actually really like the Black Panther film. I think it's great, but it's pretty overrated. I mean, guys, the CGI is like PlayStation 3 quality. It's not exactly a masterpiece. So anyway, this whole issue about pushing diversity while hiring unqualified people based on identity. Many projects now prioritize hiring based on race, gender, or political views rather than skill or experience. For example, when Netflix adapted The Witcher, they hired writers who openly hated the source material, leading to Henry Cavill leaving. And Henry Cavill is a mainstream Hollywood actor, and he is deeply passionate about nerd culture with like Superman and The Witcher and Warhammer. Henry Cavill, as well as many other people in Hollywood and in other places around the world, they're actually passionate about what they're doing. So when Henry Cavill realizes he's working with morons who hate the very thing that they're working on, it's no wonder he left. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? What were these people thinking? Why would you hire people who openly hate the source material? Oh, well, we hired this person because they fit the diversity boxes. Yeah, but what about their actual talent? What about their actual perception of the franchise? Well, they're diverse people. I know that, but what about their actual talent? Like if you're gonna hire people who hate the source material, why hire them in the first place? Because they hit the diversity box. They're the racists. End of story. Marvel and DC Comics have also pushed unqualified writers who push political agendas instead of telling great superhero stories. Another common mistake with the woke crowd is to attack the audience instead of accepting criticism. This has happened time and time again. I already mentioned the stuff with Ghostbusters, and something interesting happened with She-Hulk when the creator of She-Hulk made fun of fans in universe by portraying them as angry men whining on the internet. Even though even women online hate the She-Hulk show. I can name several female reviewers who actively hate the She-Hulk show. I kid you not. They claim to support mental health while mocking people who disagree. Like developers of The Last of Us Part 2, from what I've heard, sent hate mobs after critics, leading to mental health struggles and harassment for some reviewers. Yikes! And so people like us had to bring that to light. And obviously, people would get angry at us, but hey, we care about the truth, not about being popular. Don't care about popular. Well, depending on how you define popular, to be fair. So the once trusted media outlets of IGN, Kotaku, and Polygon gradually over the kind of site that have many subscribers on YouTube, they've now become propaganda machines of opinionated pieces. They used to be respected for their authentic gaming journalism, but now they've become more about pushing activism than about reviewing games and movies fairly. Like, for example, IGN defended the game Forspoken, a game which has very bad quality writing and dialogue, and they claimed it was hated by racists instead of acknowledging the real criticisms. I mean, like I said before, there are people who are like African American who don't like Forspoken, and Kotaku regularly attacks developers for not being progressive enough instead of focusing on actual game journalism. I've noticed that whenever there's game developers who say no to appealing to the woke crowd, they get attacked ruthlessly by these shill journalists. Like, I've seen it happen with Stellar Blade, with Black Myth Wukong, and a few other games I could mention. And they keep attacking them relentlessly, even though they're just doing their jobs of appealing to the audience who actually cares about what they're making, instead of appealing to the woke crowd who's not even interested in this given franchise in the first place. Like, that's the reason why there's several reasons why these woke flops keep on flopping. It's because they're trying to appeal to an audience that generally doesn't care about what they're actually after, and the woke crowd don't even support those kind of franchises. They just want to infect anything and everything, like a parasite, like a vampire. And most insultingly of all, the woke crowd, they keep preaching anti-capitalism whilst being funded by mega corporations. Yeah. The same people who criticize capitalism celebrate when Disney buys another studio or silences critics. And despite claiming to support indie creators, they attack independent YouTubers and call out specifically the independent YouTubers who call out corporate propaganda. But now, this recent news from an actual game developer of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has actually gone out to say, well, actually, whenever these people speak out, it actually does have an impact. And these people in the corporate industry, they are listening, and they're terrified of these kinds of people. So, yeah, we've won just purely because we were being honest, and we never held back against our honesty. Like, look at it this way. People might think, no, but you're going to lose your social credibility. You're never going to make art again. Wrong. I have seen people like Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear, Mel Gibson, and other people I could mention who are very opinionated, don't hold back on what they have to say, and they're still beloved by a wide variety of people. And they're still going with their own respective shows and movies and stuff like that. Their reputation and their dignity is not lost. Purely because they didn't double down and they didn't appeal to this vast crowd. They stood their ground. So, yeah, people can still keep creating and keeping their reputations up. So, the reason the woke infiltration of entertainment and journalism is failing is because it is full of contradictions, hypocrisies, and, as critics try to point out again and again, bad storytelling. Instead of improving their content, these companies and activists blame the audience, silence criticism, and double down on failed strategies. And as a result, people are walking away from mainstream media and supporting independent creators like me, who actually respect their intelligence and love good storytelling. It's a complex question. Let me ask you this. Should men listen to yeah, this is probably another topic entirely, but I guess I'll go over it briefly. If women have insights of that kind of topic matter, because I know what you're talking about, you should listen to them, especially if they got insights that you don't, because especially given the fact that women they have immense emotional intelligence, and they're worth paying attention to for that reason. Believe me. Like, obviously, there's these roles that people have to abide by for the sake of a spiritually sound church structure, which is part of the hierarchy about the balance of family and the dynamics of male and female psychology. Obviously, women do have the right to teach and stuff like that, but typically, you're implying the church structure. It's typically the men who in the leading role, whereas the women and other people follow likewise, and women do have the right to teach and stuff like that. besides, you have to keep in mind that there were important female figures in scripture, like Esther is a queen. She managed to speak out. Deborah was a prophetess, an oracle, and she managed to speak out and play a major role in battle in the Old Testament. So, yeah, the Bible is very empowering for women to speak out. So, there you go. There's the answer to that question. And believe me, women have emotional intelligence that you need to pay attention to, especially if it's the right woman. Moving on. Given what I'm discussing about the woke infiltration of entertainment, it's reminding me. Okay, thank you. You're welcome. It's reminding me of this most glorious speech by Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes in 2020. He had the most brutal takedown of Hollywood's hypocrisy. Like he said. It's probably not word for word, but from what I can remember, Ricky Gervais congratulated Apple on making this really provoking drama series about liberating people, and then finished it off by saying, made by a company who owns sweatshops in China. Ooh, youch. And he says other stuff like that, like... But eventually, he says right in front of all these Hollywood celebrities, most of you have spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. And then he goes on to say, you are in no position to lecture the public about anything. Because most of these people in Hollywood, they lecture the public on complex social and political issues, despite often lacking real knowledge or expertise. Now, keep in mind, this does not apply to everyone in Hollywood, but it applies to a lot of people in Hollywood who keep using the award shows to keep pushing their activism, which has a lot of double standards, which is why nobody takes shows like the Oscars seriously anymore. However, with that said, there are still very intelligent people in Hollywood and in the filming industry who care about making good quality storytelling. Christopher Nolan comes to mind. And there was something Christopher Nolan said recently in which Christopher Nolan was acknowledging that you can't win people over with political pandering. Christopher Nolan said, at best, you as an entertainer have to make your audience feel something. So because of that, Nolan is known for creating more thought-provoking films that avoid overt political messaging and preferring to explore universal themes like morality, identity, and the consequences of human choices. And it aligns with a focus more on storytelling that resonates emotionally with audiences. And he believes that the role of a filmmaker is not to preach, but rather to engage the audience on a deeply emotional level. And he often said that his goal is to make people feel something, whether it's through complex plots, intense action sequences, or the internal struggles of his characters. And it delves into stuff like human nature, personal dilemmas, philosophical questions. And he's one of the most beloved filmmakers because of that. And there's other people like him who avoid that sort of corporate pandering activism. Like Quentin Tarantino, Hayao Miyazaki, even though he's in Japan, and pretty much almost all of Japan in general avoids this kind of ridiculous pandering. And they just make stories that are just great. I'm not the biggest fan of Quentin Tarantino movies, but he's had a good reputation, if you get what I mean. So. Woke agendas failed because they forced agenda over authentic storytelling, unlikable characters and superficial themes, the tone and humor that misses the mark, alienating fans of the source material, appealing to a narrow elitist audience, the backlash of tokenism, a disconnect between producers and audiences, and it just feels completely out of touch. And what's so ironic about this is that activism is seen as a commodity these days. And the mainstream media love controversy and the attention it will bring to get people to talk about something, because the news thrives off these alarming news to give them attention, which is why outrage culture is such a big thing in trying to silence critics. And the rebel image is very marketable, and the mainstream media shift to inclusive activism. But ironically, the people who claim they're activists, it's actually giving the attention to the mainstream media. And you think, well, if they were actually rebels, then why is there so much attention from the mainstream media on them? It makes you think, doesn't it? If they really were rebels, then why is the mainstream media actively funding and paying attention to these kinds of people? It's so ironic in the fact that rebellion and activism, while often appealing and marketable, is part of a cycle that feeds the system that it intends to criticize. And the mainstream media is more than happy to give attention to these quote-unquote rebels, as it drives engagement, helps maintain cultural relevance, and it just keeps going and going. So people like Critical Drinker and other people, independent online creators, differ in the fact that they acknowledge the decline of objective reporting and the loss of trust in mainstream media, social media's influence on engagement, the rise of niche audiences, the entertainment-first approach, the power of personality, the appeal of independent thought, the growing sense of audience alienation, so on and so forth. And they're sick and tired of the shift from objective reporting to opinion-driven content, the sensationalism, the clickbait culture, the corporate influence, the political bias, the perspective of bias and polarization, the celebrity influence of virtue signaling instead of actual virtues, mind you, the failure to adapt to new media landscape, the declining of credibility of major outlets. And so people are just saying, we're fed up with it. We're absolutely fed up with it. Christian Connoisseur says it's a mature theme, but did you get what Kanye did with Bianca? I don't know, it's really great, especially probably first thing. Yeah, that's just a little side thing. Yeah, Kanye West is not doing a lot of great things. There was a time when Kanye West said he was a Christian, but he's been doing some very not Christian things recently. And even a friend of mine was a big fan of him, was deeply, deeply disappointed. It is very disappointing when that happens. But hey, that's the reason why we have to abide by transcendent morality, so we can point this stuff out when it happens. So count that as a blessing. So let's see, what else is there worth talking about? So lately, the woke crowd are trying to disguise their agenda. They try to mask the political agenda. They've always been trying to mask their political agenda as a social justice. And they use censorship and cancel culture as a form of control and redefining language to shape thought, much like the concept of the thought police from George Orwell's 1984. And the woke crowd thrive off victim narratives, the trauma dumping. Even though the people in Hollywood who have these victim narratives, they're in a place of privilege. And they should be grateful. It's like they're actively trying to seek for something to complain about instead of counting their blessings. And it's so frustrating to watch. But here's the reason why we have won, basically. The rise of independent content creators. Let's see, where was the thing? Industry jobs. Just give me one. I'm trying to look for the information. I'm trying to look for to refer to. So basically, independent content creators essentially won because they were actually being honest. They were actually being honest, authentic, and they said it as it is. They did not hold back on the quality of certain art pieces as they were, and they were even being fair and complimenting the good that did occur from the people who affiliate themselves with the woke agenda. And and they approached it, and they've managed to give themselves accountability. And the best of the independent online creators usually avoid unnecessary drama and just focus on reviewing stuff for the sake of reviewing it, because the woke crowd love the drama, and so it's best to just stay away from the drama. Just stay focused on the actual stuff. I should be doing these things more myself. Be honest, open, and authentic about stuff. It's a winning strategy. Yeah, it's a guaranteed winning strategy, because even like Acts 17 verses 27-28, Paul was willing to see God's beauty even in the pagan poetry. So that should say a lot about how we should interact with the culture around us, whether we like it or not. So that's a guaranteed way to win people over. But the woke crowd, in the name of inclusivity, are very uninclusive. They claim to be all loving, but they don't include anyone they perceive to be a threat, which is very ironic. And their agenda has leaked itself onto the media that they keep on producing. And independent creators keep calling it out. And not to mention, they have other creators actually have a legit form of self-improvement, like keeping yourself accountable, going to the gym, relaxing, finding a transcendent moral value system that transcends your own sense of morality that works for the here and now, and all kinds of stuff like that. And those kind of people thrive. And people who affiliate themselves with the woke crowd inevitably flop hard in their face at some point or another. And so, through that virtue, we've managed to win. And we are the media now. So now, just take a look at IGN. Like, look it up right now. Like, IGN has millions of subscribers, and yet their videos, as of late, have not gathered nearly as much attention as the likes of Critical Drinker and other people like him. And so much for being the mainstream media. It's a rather ironic thing for that to happen. And now people are referring to us to get a valuable source of information, with only a few actual journalist affiliations actually saying things as they are. But I suppose the best example of that would probably be Ground News. And people are going to listen to us, and because fans are going to drift towards people who are actually authentic, then they're going to listen to those kind of people who are actually being honest, and that's why the corporations are afraid of us. So the corporations have been trying to put so much pressure on us for such a long time, and they called us all these nasty words, but now the tables have turned. Now we've won. And we're going to continue reaching out to people, and the world will be all the better for it. So, I mean, that's basically the bulk of what I wanted to talk about. I don't think there's much reason for me to keep going on now. GG, I'm sure I'll be back again sometime. Right. You were heading off anyway. All right. If there's anyone else watching this live stream, feel free to hop on and say hello, and comment down below about what you think of all this, because it really is interesting. I suppose I should talk about the implications of this, because people might think, oh, does that mean those mainstream journalists are going to become obsolete and stop working altogether? Well, no. I mean, these mainstream journalists are not going to go away. They're just going to be far less popular. But whatever the case, we can't afford to have another woke agenda push. Otherwise, the entertainment industry is, as we know it, could very well crumble apart. I mean, in some ways, it could, gather itself back up together again. But it's a parasite that just sucks out all the joy and the authenticity of actual entertainment as well as history, because those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. What is your thoughts on AI? Again, one more time, I'm using it like I'm sure I asked all the time. I will admit, I was actually using ChatGPT to assist me on even this video, just as a way of summarizing different points and really I didn't read absolutely all of it word for word, but I used it as a guide to read a lot from it, and then at some point I just sort of kind of skimmed through it. So yeah, I use ChatGPT, but I've said it before and I'll say it again: use ChatGPT as a tool, not a crutch. There's a lot of people out there who bastardize the ChatGPT system, especially through its memory system, to have the answers suit their own biases rather than the balanced answers. Which is why when you approach ChatGPT, you always have to be considerate and have a very balanced approach into how you ask the questions. Like when it comes up with this kind of answer that could imply something that the highly opinionated people could go for, you could then ask something like, "Are you sure about that?" Although something I've noticed about ChatGPT is that it's not a perfect tool. There are times when I try to get questions answered in regards to very, very niche topics, and ChatGPT struggled to give authentic answers in regards to that. So take that with a grain of salt. But other than that, it's a surprisingly reliable tool, and I would imagine it can be a great way for people to just stop spamming onto Google and actually use ChatGPT to actually get some authentic answers, but depending on their approach, of course. Okay, I remember this. This is wise. I should ask for a negative pushback and critique from it. All right. Something else that my friend Squidbear actually told me about a ChatGPT is that what's useful is that you can actually correct ChatGPT by saying, "No, I meant," with a response by, like, say you type in some question, then ChatGPT goes to that, but then makes an error. Then you can correct it by saying, "No, I meant this," and then ChatGPT says, "Oh, I see. Here's a different outcome." That's better. Okay, but sometimes I try doing that and it'll just give the exact same answer. So I suppose it depends on the circumstance of the way you word things and the way the questions things. Although I'm surprised at times when I've seen someone who's very bad at spelling, and yet ChatGPT was still able to pick up on what he was trying to say. And bad spelling is bad grammar too. I suppose something else I should mention. I've heard lately today that the final Attack on Titan movie is now out in America, so there's something to be hyped about. What else have I been hearing? Gran Turismo 8 will be coming out this year. Something about Mark. What else is worth paying attention to? I suppose if you have the time, feel free to support my friends Sci-Fi Comic on Patreon. The link is below in the description. And yep, I don't think there's much more that I need to get into. I think I've said my piece, and what I've said is the objective truth. But of course, like all good people, I try to approach these kind of topics in the most balanced way possible, like I mentioned with ChatGPT, because I've noticed it can be very easy to get carried away with the extremes of the politics, because politics thrive off extremes, and that combined with the tendency for both sides to have these false interpretations. Like there's one YouTuber said, like some people say, "Oh, this thing that Hollywood's doing with the woke agenda, it's Marxism, it's Marxism." No, there is a distinct difference between wokeism and Marxism, even though they do have a lot in common, mind you. So we have to avoid those kind of extremes, but at the same time, we have to stick to the truth, even if it's inconvenient for us. that's how we genuinely self-improve, and that's how we grow. But needless to say, regardless, there are so many people who have gotten disillusioned with this with the kind of crowd that has infiltrated Hollywood. Even the people who would have welcomed it at first in the past gradually realized over time that their agenda does not fit the history and the facts about how society should work. And so they've started to push back against the woke agenda. And now we've gotten to this point where we've won. We are the authentic voices now. We are the people that people refer to when it comes to gaining information on certain niche interests, because we don't have the same kind of pressures that these shill journalists have. We don't have the pressures of someone barking down our necks to get things done or stuff like that. We actually can do anything at any time we please with any topic we want. So that's bound to get the attention of certain people who are also interested in particular subjects and stuff like that. Myself and different friends of mine will have their particular niche interests, different themes, different interests and stuff like that. Just take a look at my recommendations all throughout. You notice that myself, Squid Bear Studios, Malika Wrights, Evan Prince, Jarf, all these people all have these different interests in regards to entertainment. With Malika, she's got her attention on literature, as well as occasionally movies and television shows. I focus a lot more on like films, TV shows, video games, anime, and occasionally books as well. But Malika's much more into books than I'll ever be, admittedly. Evan Prince is the bulky, tough guy who likes video games, Dragon Ball, and anime. And he encourages people to work out at the gym. Pretty masculine guy. Jarf's a musician who's quite interested in Lord of the Rings. Squid Bear Studios. He's got his interest on stuff like Transformers, Cyberpunk, The Holdovers, and movies that tend to like criticize like the double standards of society, like with Thank You for Smoking, DreamWorks movies, and so on and so forth. All of us have these unique interests, and they're inevitably going to appeal with other audience members who also have similar kind of appeal. And through that, we branch out to more people, we form a community, and we trust each other. And that trust helps us to grow and blossom. Whereas the woke crowd is sowing immense distrust. And that's why so many people don't really trust a lot of mainstream news outlets anymore. It's not that there are no reliable news outlets. I mean, people rely on stuff like Ground News, as well as some other more grounded news outlets, which is great. And it's great to know that there are news outlets out there that remain unbiased, and that's great. That is legitimately fantastic. It's just that it's no secret that like the mainstream media doesn't really have the grasp on people that it used to have. I mean, I've grown disillusioned from it like years ago, and I've been speaking out against the double standards of the woke crowd, particularly for quite some time, and we've reached a point of absolute victory. And victory is mine if we survive. The warrior, the warrior. Anyway, I think I've dragged this on for about as long as it needs to. I think there'll be other people to meet and greet, and I think I'm in the mood to play a game on PlayStation 5 and then probably just head off afterwards. But feel free to join me, and thank you very much for joining me. If there's anything you have to say about the fact that we are the legacy media now, feel free to comment down below or share this with friends and talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it. Yeah, I see no reason to keep talking about it, so I'm just going to end it there. Although I will end with this. Thank you all so much for supporting me and my channel, as well as supporting my friends. I want to give a shout out to Double A, a friend of mine who we met through Malika, and he's been making a lot of the thumbnails for this channel lately. Really talented guy. I mean, I'm quite handy with Photoshop as well, but these days I find I don't really have the time to use the intricacies of Photoshop like I used to. So Double A, I don't know if you're watching this, but thank you so much for producing good quality thumbnails for me and so many others. Thank you so much, as well as the banner image. Thank you all so much for supporting not just myself, but my friends like Squid Bear, Malika, and Evan Prince, and all the good stuff. And we'll continue to strengthen each other up and continue to grow the kingdom. Amen to that. Anyway, gotta go for real this time. ScotsThinker signing out.